Welcome back to Grinverse History, where we uncover the strange and forgotten sides of history. Tonight we explore how medieval punishment silenced women, not to uncover truth, but to enforce fear and obedience. Medieval justice is often wrapped in honor and faith, but behind stone walls, justice moved without evidence. A husband's suspicion could outweigh any defense. A woman could be sentenced without ever being questioned. The most disturbing detail is not the cruelty itself, it is how normal these punishments once felt. You are standing in a castle courtyard before dawn. Cold stone presses through your boots. Iron waits nearby, shaped to silence. A woman kneels, accused unheard, already condemned. Before we go deeper, take a quiet moment with Grinverse History. If slow, immersive storytelling speaks to you, like and subscribe. And wherever you are listening from tonight, share your country below. Now dim the lights, slow your breathing and relax your shoulders. This is not a story meant to be rushed. Let the present fade into the background. Allow the weight of stone and iron to replace it. Medieval power thrived when time stretched long and cold. It is the late Middle Ages. Punishment becomes public ritual inside fortified castles. Suspicion turns into spectacle, and once it begins, only participation remains. You begin to notice something unsettling very quickly. Truth does not seem invited into this space. It waits outside the castle walls, unattended. You are standing in a narrow courtyard, still dark with morning. Cold air settles low, clinging to stone and wall. A husband's accusation hangs heavier than the fog. No questions follow it. No witnesses are summoned with care. In this world, suspicion does not request proof, it announces a conclusion. Once spoken by the right mouth, it becomes enough. You watch how the system responds immediately, not with investigation but with equipment. Iron appears before any testimony does. That detail explains everything quietly. The device waits on a wooden bench. It is small, deliberate, and already shaped. A scold's bridle does not look angry, it looks practical. Its spikes face inward, as if conversation itself were a threat. You realize the punishment does not target the crime, it targets the mouth. Speech is treated like a dangerous tool left unattended. Defense is considered an inconvenience rather than a right. You hear the logic without anyone explaining it. If she cannot speak, she cannot argue. If she cannot argue, the accusation stabilizes. Order, once restored, no longer requires evidence. The woman is not asked what happened. She is asked to kneel correctly. Her words are irrelevant by design. The bridle fits before any explanation could. You notice how quiet the crowd remains, not because they are unsure, because they have learned what quiet produces. Silence keeps the process moving efficiently. This punishment does not aim to extract truth. It aims to prevent future noise. Noise, in medieval society, often belonged to women. That alone made it suspicious. You feel how fear works here. It travels faster than reason ever could. Other women watch carefully from a distance. They learn the lesson without being addressed directly. This is not cruelty born from rage. It is cruelty born from organization. The kind that repeats well across generations. The iron presses against flesh that has not been heard. The tongue learns the cost of movement immediately. Pain enforces stillness more reliably than argument. You sense how neatly the system closes. No appeal remains. Once speech disappears, justice becomes a one-sided conversation. The husband leaves without further involvement. His role ended the moment he spoke. The rest is handled professionally. You understand something cold and important. The goal was never truth. The goal was compliance made visible. This kind of punishment does not ask questions. It removes the possibility of answering. The courtyard feels quieter afterward. Not peaceful, just efficiently emptied. Iron returns to its place. Ready again, you step back slowly, aware of what you witnessed. A system that silences first rarely listens later. History rarely calls this justice. It simply calls it order. You notice that pain is not the main attraction here. Pain is only the opening act. What follows is much more permanent. You stand along a village road before sunrise. Cold air moves freely through exposed skin. The crowd gathers early, wrapped in routine curiosity. Nobody looks surprised by what is about to happen. The punishment begins by removing markers of identity. Hair falls first, without ceremony or apology. Clothing follows, not as necessity, but instruction. Each layer taken announces a subtraction of personhood. You feel the cold sharpen as exposure increases. Cold works slowly, which authorities appreciate. It keeps the body present and responsive. She is led forward deliberately, not hurried. Walking turns into part of the sentence. Eyes follow her steps with memorized attention. This is not about seeing once. This is about remembering forever. You realize how carefully humiliation is designed. Private shame would dissolve eventually. Public shame renews itself every morning. Faces become mirrors she cannot avoid. The crowd does not need to shout. Silence performs just as well. Laughter appears only where safety exists. Safety belongs to those fully clothed. Water arrives next, looking almost merciful. It promises relief, but delivers spectacle. Submersion interrupts breath without ending life. That balance matters for teaching purposes. You hear the sound change when she resurfaces. Gasps mix with familiarity. The crowd recognizes the pattern again. Recognition deepens memory more than surprise. This punishment does not conclude with release. Release would imply an ending. Instead, it extends into daily life. The sentence continues without guards. She returns to streets that already know her. Neighbors rehearse the moment without speaking. Children learn where not to look. Shame settles into routine like dust. You understand the brilliance of this cruelty. No prison walls are required afterward. The town itself becomes containment. Every glance reactivates the original verdict. Identity fractures under repeated exposure. Femininity becomes something recalled rather than inhabited. Social standing erodes without visible wounds. The punishment pretends to end when walking stops. In reality, it has just relocated. The body leaves the square. The memory remains in circulation. You sense how permanence operates quietly. Living among witnesses extends the sentence indefinitely. Time serves the system without complaint. This is not a moment of justice. It is a lifelong rehearsal of humiliation. The road looks ordinary again afterward. Footprints disappear into familiar dirt. Daily business resumes without reflection. You feel how easily the crowd moves on. They carry no marks forward. Only one person does public punishment works because it outlives pain. Pain fades eventually. Reputation rarely does. History called this correction. It functioned more like erasure. You notice how quickly the crowd looks away. Not from cruelty, but from permanence. This punishment does not scream for attention. It waits patiently for the rest of a lifetime. You are standing close enough to hear metal breathe. The blade is not dramatic or hurried. It is chosen for accuracy rather than speed. Accuracy matters when the goal is memory. This is not execution disguised as mercy. This is branding performed on flesh. The face becomes a document that never expires. You understand the logic immediately. Clothes can be changed. Homes can be abandoned. Names can be whispered differently. But a face travels everywhere without consent. The cut arrives without ceremony. Pain is sharp, but pain is temporary. What follows is quieter and far more efficient. The mirror becomes an accomplice. You notice how the crowd reacts afterward, not with horror, but with recognition. Recognition replaces explanation. No one needs to ask what happened. The mutilation removes more than tissue. It removes plausible denial. Every glance completes the sentence again. Every encounter restarts the verdict. You watch her walk away still breathing. Breathing is permitted. Belonging is not. The village remembers faster than it forgets. This punishment understands social architecture well. Isolation works better when enforced visually. No guards are needed after the cut. Society performs the rest automatically. You feel how time cooperates with this design. Years pass, but the face does not negotiate. The body carries its own paperwork everywhere. Forgiveness has nowhere to land. People stop speaking to her directly, not out of fear, but convenience. Silence becomes polite. Distance becomes routine. You realize how clean this cruelty appears. No cell to maintain, no food to provide. This is not death as an event. This is death as condition. The body remains present. The person becomes historical immediately. You stand there long enough to understand the efficiency. Mutilation solves problems permanently. It prevents return without ending life. That banished status not chase redemption. It eliminates the possibility of it. Reintegration would complicate the lesson. You sense how final this feels without funerals. No grave marks the outcome, no ritual closes the account. The body remains open to interpretation. This was never about pain alone. Pain fades too easily, visibility does not. The street looks ordinary again. People resume their routes without comment. Only one face changes everything. History later called this discipline. The body knew it as permanence. You notice how gently these punishments are described. The words sound careful, almost considerate. No blade appears, no crowd demands blood. You stand in a narrow stone corridor. The air feels older than memory. Walls lean inward as if listening. This is where mercy is stored. You are told this sentence is humane. It does not end a life directly. It simply removes it from circulation. That distinction mattered greatly to medieval authority. Immortality begins without urgency. Stone blocks arrive one by one. Each block fits too well to argue with. Light narrows politely with every movement. You notice the sound first. Mortar settles with a dull finality. Breathing echoes differently once. Walls close. Time becomes the loudest presence left. Starvation chambers operate on similar logic. Food does not disappear suddenly. It thins gradually like attention. Hope adjusts itself downward each day. The body learns patience faster than the mind. Silence stretches into something instructional. No one needs to supervise this process. Confinement inside a convent appears gentler still. Prayer replaces conversation. Routine replaces identity. The world shrinks to stone floors and measured hours. You are alive officially. That satisfies the record. Unofficially, your name stops circulating. Visitors forget what to ask for. You feel how time performs the real labor. Days repeat without variation. Repetition, erode, edges efficiently. Personhood, thins without resistance. These punishments understand psychology very well. The body can endure more than the self. Isolation teaches compliance better than pain. Loneliness never raises its voice. You watch identity dissolve quietly. No mirror confirms who remains. Memory fades without witnesses. This cruelty does not rely on violence. It relies on duration. Duration never requires justification once it starts. You sense how authority avoids responsibility here. Death would end accountability. Endurance transfers blame to time itself. Time never testifies in court. The system calls this mercy because it waits. Waiting feels passive. Waiting is rarely passive for the one waiting. You stand there long enough to understand the strategy. A slow sentence prevents dramatic resistance. Drama requires moments. These punishments remove moments entirely. No funeral closes the story. No execution marks the end. Life continues without narrative shape. That absence becomes the punishment. You feel how easy it is to disappear this way. No force is required after the door closes. The world forgets responsibly. The corridor feels unchanged afterward. Stone keeps its temperature. Silence resumes its duties. You step away knowing something essential. Death is not always the harshest outcome. Sometimes survival is extendness. Time called it something else. You begin to sense how little judgment matters here. Judgment requires questions, and questions slow things down. Control prefers speed and visibility. You are standing at the edge of a public square. Wooden platforms creak with familiar weight. Ropes hang where explanations should have been. The crowd gathers early because lessons start on time. This punishment does not aim at the woman alone. It reaches past her body into surrounding eyes. Everyone present is part of the sentence. Fear works better when shared widely. You notice how the event is organized carefully. There is a beginning, a middle, and endurance. Endurance always attracts the most attention. Pain becomes a message once it lasts long enough. No evidence is presented with ceremony. No witness speaks in her favor. A single accusation carries remarkable efficiency. Efficiency mattered more than accuracy in medieval systems. You hear the husband's words repeated softly. They do not sound detailed or precise. They sound sufficient, which is worse. Sufficiency activates machinery without hesitation. You realize how the system understands ownership. The woman is treated like moral property. Property does not argue for its condition. Property is repaired, marked, or removed. When suspicion appears, repair feels unnecessary. Marking satisfies the need for order. Removal keeps the structure clean. None of this requires guilt to be proven. You feel how public suffering simplifies governance. One body absorbs fear for many. Many learn obedience without direct contact. This is considered effective leadership. The crowd watches not out of cruelty. They watch to understand boundaries. Boundaries feel safer when drawn clearly. Someone else's pain draws them neatly. You notice how repetition stabilizes the ritual. Once seen, it becomes expected. Once expected, it becomes normal. Normal requires no justification afterward. This justice does not ask who she is. It asks what she represents. Representation travels further than individuality ever could. You sense how easily this scales. Any woman could stand there next. Any accusation could start the motion. That possibility keeps the system breathing. You understand something cold and structural. These punishments are not failures of justice. They are its intended function. Control disguises itself as morality convincingly. The system does not collapse under cruelty. It stabilizes through it. Order tightens as fear circulates efficiently. The square empties with professional calm. Children are pulled home quietly. You remain long enough to notice the silence. Silence always follows successful demonstrations. No one needs further clarification. Medieval justice never promised fairness. It promised predictability instead. Predictability kept everyone in place. History later called this law. Power called it maintenance. The noise softens now. Stone grows quiet again. The night finally slows its breath. Behind us, a medieval courtyard cools in darkness. Iron rests without purpose. Wood remembers nothing. You can almost hear lanterns dimming, footsteps fading into routine silence. Places like this never ask to be remembered. They simply wait for time to pass. You feel yourself returning gently. The weight of stone lifts from your shoulders. The air feels warmer here. Breathing feels easier again. If this quiet journey stayed with you, if slow history feels like late-night company, you are welcome to linger a little longer. A soft light helps these stories travel. A calm subscription keeps the door open. We leave the castles behind for now. The walls can sleep. The night can close its pages. Thank you for listening slowly. Goodbye, and we will meet again.